Hey, folks, welcome to a post. Can we say post-victory? That's assuming too much. We don't want to say post-victory edition.
They're all post-victory edition.
They have been lately. A post-game edition of the Carlos and Shawn show. Can I just go ahead and rename this? Would that be all right?
Sure, right now, yeah.
Do we need to say free press?
March to victory, the march to the Super Bowl, yeah.
The road to the playoffs, I think, is under the icon. Anyway, here we are after another Lions win. They're 4-1 in the season now. They beat Carolina 42-24. Oddly enough, the stats don't really support that score. They sort of do. I mean, the Lions did a good job holding the rush. But what were your takeaways today? The score was dominant. I don't quite feel like the game was dominant, but they were missing some of their best players. And the fact that they won fairly comfortably, I think, said something.
I mean, what do you want? 42-24. What you
doubled
want?
up in yards.
You want like 400 rushing yards, 500 passing yards?
No, not necessarily that. But the difference in the game was the 3 turnovers, right? It's 21 points.
Yeah, they played complementary football. They played well. I mean, I was talking to our colleague Dave Burkett, who's too good to join us, but he said he's like, yeah, I have to, I think, pretty much give them straight A's. It's really hard to find a fault with what they did today. So this is exactly what you want. You want this holistic, complete, complementary football game. And at the end of the day, I mean, even though there's no, guy had 2 pick sixes or one guy had 4 touchdowns or nothing superlative like that from an individual standpoint, it was just a complete dominant performance, and it was never close, really, after the first quarter.
Well, they got it to within a score, right? I mean, after the first quarter. Yeah, I mean, in the first quarter, then after that, they pulled away in the second, and then whatever. I don't even know what the halftime score was, but yeah. I was writing my gamer. Yeah, at that point. No, they got it one score, and then the Lions came up with another turnover, and that just sort of ruined whatever. Not ruined, because these folks here didn't want any kind of suspense late, but that essentially ended the game, and it was interesting because you leaned over at one point in the second half, maybe even early in the fourth quarter. They're late in the third, early in the fourth, and said, why are they throwing the ball? They don't need to. And not too long after that, all of a sudden, Craig Reynolds got the ball a couple of times and
went for big gains,
big chunks, and hit those holes hard, and the game was over at that point. But look, you wrote, and I want to talk about what you wrote for your what we call your immediate analysis. How about that?
The 3 questions, yes.
The 3 questions. The immediate analysis. You wrote about Ben Johnson and how the Lions need to enjoy him while they can.
Yeah.
You and I have, and I'm going to look at the viewers here, the listeners. You and I have very different ideas about that. I think if Campbell's who we think he is, it's not going to ultimately matter. But anyway, why do you argue that?
Well, I think that we haven't seen him. We haven't seen him before. Even when Mike Martz was here, supposed to be bringing the greatest show on turf with him, and that didn't work out. I mean, Ben Johnson's just a special character, a different kind of animal. I mean, just today, just a small slice, right? He calls a direct snap between Goff's legs to David Montgomery. It doesn't make that much of a difference. It's late in the game, whatever. It didn't go for a score, but it got a couple yards. Creative. And then the reverse flea flicker, right? To Sam Laporta for
like
a touchdown.
A double reverse flea flicker or whatever. Yeah, right.
It was incredible. And Taylor Decker even talked about it, and he said, what's fun about that is that Ben Johnson's going to call plays that are going to, he's going to rely on you to do your job, even if it's hard, if it's a hard execution. But that's kind of what they enjoy about the challenge. And it's fun to watch this offense. I mean, they're missing Ahmad St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs. Halapuli Vaitai has been out, although Graham Glasgow's playing pretty well. Jamison Williams just barely mixing into the game, his first game today, got a little bit of action, not much, but he was somewhat limited. And they scored 42 points. I mean, Carolina's not a good team, but still, this guy just knows how to call a game. It's special, and it's going to be different. When he gets a head coaching job this offseason, it's going to be different. Hey, I believe in Campbell. Campbell's your guy. You love Campbell. You just
love him. I love him. I have a lot of respect for him.
You love him.
And I think one of the more underrated parts of him is his football acumen and sense, and I think he's going to be able to find somebody out there.
Do you think he's the play caller? Okay. Oh, you think? Okay, so you think he's going to line somebody?
No. Okay. Look, if he's who I think you suspect he could be, and look, we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. But the teams that stay good lose coordinators because they're good, and they got to replace them. So the Steelers, right? I don't want to say the Patriots. I just said. I guess I should be fine for that.
or the Chiefs even, right? They've changed a little bit. Andy Reid is there.
No, Andy Reid's their play caller. Eric Bieniemy had nothing to do.
But look, the Patriots, the head man is defensively minded. So, and Bill Belichick, but. That's so far down the road, the idea of sustained success. I'm just saying, if that's their goal, which I think it is, ultimately as an organization, then they're going to have to replace coordinators. It happens every time any team gets good.
We've never seen it happen with the Lions.
No, we haven't, and I can't believe we're... no, but, I guess it's a blow. We got to figure out something to write about. I wrote about what I thought was interesting about today is that, to your point, they were missing Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown on offense. Arguably, their best receiver, the speedy young rookie, sort of the hybrid back who they're still trying to work in. And
they know who Gibbs is. You don't have to explain it.
And figure out. No.
Who are they really missing?
Well, defensively, they're missing Brian Branch, who neck and neck, he or Aiden Hutchinson in terms of their most important defensive player.
But he's their breakout player.
Branch has just been. Hutch has been really, really good. Branch has been spectacular.
Yeah.
And making plays at all three levels, and he's really, really been something. Look, it's because of the depth, and this is, I guess, what I wrote about. We don't even talk about C.J. Gardner-Johnson, right? Yeah. Mosley comes back today. He's not out there long. He has an injury that, as Dan Campbell said after the game, that the replay didn't look great.
Could be an ACL. Yeah, it doesn't look good.
I mean, so, God, that's a tough blow. Bad break. Nope, sorry. But, really, really tough luck for him. In any case, so they're missing guys offensively. They're missing a couple of guys defensively. Mm-hmm. And what happens? They just they plug guys in. Mm-hmm. This team has depth. You've been covering this team a long time. When's the last time I had depth like this? And this gets back to Campbell and Brad Holmes.
Yeah, it's been a really long time. I mean, since the days of the Sue era, that's when that's the last time the defense had that much kind of depth, and it's showing up. And you have the defensive line. I think that was the big disappointment, right, against Seattle, was that they were counting on that line to put pressure on Geno Smith, so that you took pressure off the secondary, the back seven. To not have to cover as long and to not have to work as hard at stopping the run. And when they've cleaned that up and they've been more disciplined by their own admission in the rush, that's helped. That's helped the whole secondary, because secondary is still not great. Jerry Jacobs, and he's kind of a gambler. Plays
another
physically.
Pick today, right?
Another pick, but he also got burned too. And Cam Sutton, decent cornerback. Tracy Walker back there. There's
Mosley was supposed to be their best cornerback this year, right?
I think so.
It just hadn't worked out. Yeah. So he was supposed to be their best cover corner.
Yeah, and so they've had to make up for it, but they've done a good job. But they've really put their resources on the defensive line, which most teams try to do that with free agency and the draft and all that. So it's working now. They haven't played other than the Chiefs minus Travis Kelce, they haven't played an elite team yet. That's coming. The Tampa, it will be a nice test next week,
especially on the road.
On the road, Tampa has a bye this week, so they're going to be really rested. So that's going to be an interesting test for them. So, but they are doing what they need to do. They are looking good and they're playing complementary. And I think we talked about it at one point when we were talking about whether the Lions should go for it on fourth down. And I think maybe you mentioned something about the defense and trusting their defense or something, and so that's part of it. And they are trusting. They're both sides. Or there was one when they had, I think it was Hutchinson. Maybe it was when Hutchinson got the. I forget. Someone had a pick. It was either Hutchinson or Jacobs. But there was this weird back and forth where it seemed like both sides of the ball were on the field for one play, and then they came off and they went back. It was just this constant juggling of players on the sideline coming in and out because they were going through so many kind of, scoring and turnovers, good things for them for both sides. But yeah, it was dynamic. It was really impressive what they did today. You couldn't ask. Eminem was happy, Shawn. How much more? Eminem was here. How happy could you be?
That's true. He was pumping his fist. Look, Carolina's winless?
Yes.
The plucky team, they've got some nice young pieces. That quarterback, I think, is going to be really good at some point, Bryce Young. And they got a couple
good poise.
Yeah, absolutely. They got a couple of defensive linemen who can get after it. I guess what impressed me overall, look, you need to beat that team. You got to beat that team.
Yep.
The Lions have for I don't remember the last time you say, hey, they're going to beat this team despite missing a handful of their very best players.
Right.
And that's the thing. You were talking about defensively missing Branch and so forth. Offensively, here comes Josh Reynolds, right? Mm-hmm. Khalif Raymond catches a couple of balls. Yeah. Brock Wright catches 3 balls. Not for a lot of yards, but he hadn't been targeted. Marvin Jones, who hadn't caught a ball since Kansas City, he got a couple of balls.
Yeah.
One of them was a first down catch, and those things matter. Mm-hmm. Sam Laporta was his usual self, a couple of more touchdowns. But that's the thing. Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell, the roster that Holmes has built, you're missing your best weapon offensively. And Gibbs, Jahmyr Gibbs, who's I think got a chance to be by the end of the season a pretty good weapon, and they don't miss a beat, and they shouldn't. That's what good teams do against Carolina. Now, will they miss them against Tampa, or as the competition gets better? Yeah, you need Brian Bench and you need Amon-Ra St. Brown, but to hang on to make the playoffs, you're going to have games on your schedule where there are teams you need to beat, and you're going to be missing some guys. That happens every year with the best teams, and so how are you going to respond? 42-24.
The thing that Campbell loves, probably the highest compliment he can give his players when he says that they're reliable, they're doing what they're supposed to do, and I think that's maybe the highest compliment we can give this team right now is that they're reliable. Or now after the Seattle flop, coming off the Kansas City game, losing the home opener and everything to a team that's really not great, decent but not great. But here, this was the emphasis, right? They were coming off a big win in Green Bay, had 10 days. They were supposed to throttle this team, and they did it. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. And for so many years, we've seen them not respond this way, not do what they should be doing. They get in their own heads, blah, 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 whatever. And Campbell talked about it last week, the whole, we're going to be the hunters, and you'll find us on the porch, and all his great, funny metaphors.
Which his players, of course, eat up.
They eat up.
Can't get enough of it, yeah.
It's so funny. And so I don't know if it really drives them, but I think they find it inspiring in some way, but also kind of funny. And
they do.
Campbell's kind of he's fun that way, and it's not like he's like, I'm going to drive you into the ground or whatever. But he's finding a way to motivate them. But beyond that, that he emphasized that, and he even said it himself. That players were basically telling them, Coach, relax. We know what you're getting at. We got it.
We don't care that they're winless. We're going to be ready for them.
We're going to be ready.
Good to go. And they were. Right?
The message, and that's the thing, was that's what you want the most. I remember watching if you ever watch these old NFL films of Bill Parcells, and when Bill Belichick was an assistant with him, first as special teams and then a defensive coordinator. And Parcells was constantly kind of micromanaging. And Belichick would say, "We got it, Bill. We got it. We've already talked about this, And I think that reminded me a little bit of maybe what the players are telling Campbell, we got it, Coach."
Well, and Campbell's a Parcells guy, right? I mean,
and he's a Parcells guy to some extent, yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. And he's not Bill Parcells. But he's maybe the modern incarnation in some way of Bill Parcells.
Yeah,
close as you can get these days.
A little less snark, a little less.
He doesn't Parcells would come down into the media room at Giant Stadium and talk to the reporter. It was a different era, but Campbell's kind of as close as you can get to that these days as far as his connection with people and the media.
Well, speaking of Campbell, after the game, he said, "Hey, we can play with anybody. I'm not worried about that." And that's
a big statement.
It is a big statement, I mean, Taylor Decker and an emotional. He got emotional at some point. His
100 games.
He's celebrating his 100 games, talking about his family that they've been through here. Got to talking about just what it's like to be a Lion for all these years.
All the bad times.
How he felt like a loser, even though he told himself he was a winner, and just. And just how hard that's been, and how special the beginning of the season is. Even going back to late last season, he mentioned just how special it's been to be able to shed some of that. You can feel that, and Campbell talked about that. This also when he said, "Our guys they can smell the wins, and they want them." And we just haven't. When's the last time we've just talked about this team like this, and
never
just the confidence that they have? What did your a colleague of ours, who we can't mention for proprietary purposes, but we respect him. How about that? Asked Jared Goff, what's your identity on offense? Are you a passing team? Are you a running team? And he said, we're a good team.
We're a good team.
And I just thought, I know that sounds, but to hear that coming out of these guys and this franchise, right? They are a good team, right?
They're a Ben Johnson-led offensive team, but they're a good team on top of that, yeah. offense is their identity. The dynamism of offense is their identity, really, that they can do whatever they want.
And they still have
whoever they
right?
have.
Don't you feel like 6 weeks from now, I think they could be even a good bit better offensively?
Well,
I really do.
If this game took place in 3 or 4 weeks and St. Brown's healthy and Gibbs is hitting his stride, they could.
And Jamison Williams is at least catching a couple of balls, right?
And he's in the mix more.
He's
they could have gone 500 yards
instead of the.
They could have gone. They could have really gone off. They were never going to run up the score though, because Campbell and Frank Reich are friends. They had the training camp practices in Indianapolis last year, and so they was never going to. In fact, I'm surprised the score got that high. 42 points. I thought somewhere around 30 they were going to be, hey, let's just be cool. Let's kind of run up the middle till there. But Craig Reynolds couldn't be stopped. He's like, I'm getting my yards.
Yeah, no, he did.
So when you're running the ball,
I think they wanted to keep the Lions out, or the Panthers out of that end zone on that last one. I think 42-17 sounds a little more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They wanted to keep him out, and the defense. The defense did need. I mean, Hutchinson was banged up. I mean, after that interception, he got hit really hard in the thigh. He was struggling that whole game. So you have to balance that. So the offense was still out there to help the defense, I think. I would have put Bridgewater in maybe a little earlier than the last kneel down series just to protect Goff. I think
he took some hits.
Winning the game by 10 or 12 is fine. I don't think you need to win.
I guess it's just
24.
Part of being an NFL coach is just the paranoia and. You don't want to come back. All right, look. So on to the next. Tampa is going to be a tough test. They are so far the best team in the NFC South. Wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, they looked at Baker Mayfield is kind of revived, and Cleveland's wondering why the heck they got rid of him and signed Shawn Watson. But we'll have plenty of time to think about that later on in the week. But that's going to be a good test. It's on the road.
And it's also, by the way, John Dorsey, who was the general manager who drafted Baker Mayfield, is now a personnel executive assistant, whatever, with the Lions. So, Baker Mayfield is very, very interested in, showing Dorsey that he was wrong and whatever. They didn't have the best relationship.
It's a good test. A good couple of them coming up. Tampa and then Baltimore is a good, solid team.
Baltimore's decent.
They're decent. I mean, they're not
hard
great.
They lost to Pittsburgh, but they'll be tough at home.
They will
Baltimore.
be. I think Tampa might even be the better. Just you never know. But that will be fun. They're 4-1, Carlos, top of the NFC North, which is first time in I don't know since they started 5-0 and. 2011 and end up losing that division. So you never know. Hey, the Bears will look better at least the last couple of weeks. Minnesota was trailing Kansas City. I haven't seen that score lately, so I don't know what's happening there. But we'll see. It's all right there for the Lions. They've won the games they had to win, and now they got to go win a couple of tough ones, don't they?
Yeah, nice little test. 2 back-to-back on the road.
All righty. We will find a way to hook up. I should maybe say that, right? That means something.
That means something different.
That's different for young people, isn't it?
Yeah.
We will find a way to connect next week from Tampa, wherever you are, and you're at the yacht club.
Maybe
the yacht club, the boating club, somewhere.
Yeah, we'll have to check on that. We'll have to see. But yeah,
we'll figure something out. All right. Again, 42-24. Your 4-1 Lions hit the road for a couple of weeks. Carlos and I, and of course Dave Burgett and everybody else will have coverage all week at freep.com, so check that out until we meet you again for more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn later in the week.